Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the On Deck podcast by Prospects Live. Today is Thursday, September 18th. You are seeing this on Friday, September 19th, and we are talking about a bunch of current events in the baseball world. And I'm joined by my good buddy, Rhys White, Director of Pro Scouting at Prospects Live. Rhys, ready to talk some baseball, my friend?
Always am.
How about we start off with MLB today? It's been a little bit since we've talked about Major League Baseball, and things have changed a lot. Playoffs are mostly getting sorted out, except for maybe some interesting things going on with the New York Mets right now. But I want to start off with the AL wild card race. It looks like it's pretty much wrapped up at this point. But do you have any teams that might stumble down the stretch, or any teams you're not convinced are fully in the playoff picture yet?
Okay, so I think that we're basically assuming what New York and Boston are kind of locked in. Well, Boston can kind of fall out with a bunch of different scenarios. Right now, the Tigers are playing the Guardians, and the Guardians basically are, the Tigers are not playing very well right now. So that kind of has opened up the door for the Guardians to kind of what came from looked like they were dead at in the second or beginning of the second half. Now we have them back in it. I think Texas is more or less done. They're 4.5 games back. They're not technically eliminated, but things would have to go horribly wrong in Seattle. But yeah, I think right now, as we're looking at it, the current standings of New York, Boston, Seattle is kind of what I project going forward. And maybe that's being a little hopeful with the way the Tigers are playing these days.
Absolutely. The Guardians are at a 16% make playoffs percentage on Fangraphs right now, and I would assume that will bump up slightly if they win today against Detroit. But we're talking about 16% with only about a week left in the season. I don't love their odds, if we're being honest. I think the one thing in the AL that we're talking about right now is Mariners versus Astros. It's pretty much dead 50-50 in who's going to win the division. Do you think it matters who wins the division there? I mean, we're starting to look at matchups in the playoffs, 3 seed versus maybe the 6 seed. What are we thinking about the AL West? Do you have a running favorite maybe?
I think that the Astros just being proven that you can never really count them out. Carlos Correa has been not bad. The contract's going to look pretty bad in a couple of years, but that's looking like a smart move on their part. I'm going to go with the slight favorite in Seattle. Hopefully, Cal Raleigh can kind of carry this out, and I think if they win the division, I think that more or less locks up as MVP chance. I think that, there's a lot on the line for that because Aaron Judge is making a swoop back in. He's starting to hit for more power again. So I'm hoping it's Seattle because I'd like to see my friend Nate happy. I would also like to see Cal Raleigh winning MVP. I think that'd be very cool.
And the Astros are a little banged up right now. I mean, Isaac Paredes is supposed to be coming back soon, but Yordan Alvarez, kind of nasty ankle sprain. I don't know if you saw the video, Rhys, on X. He's crossing home plate and kind of twists his ankle up. So we're not too sure what's going to be going on with Yordan. And I mean, that's another hit to the Astros, who haven't had him all year, to be fair. But the AL does feel pretty wrapped up, and I'm not too worried about my Seattle Mariners making it or not. Let's move over to the NL, and things are starting to get interesting. The Mets are incapable of winning games that Nolan McLean doesn't start, and Arizona's creeping into the playoff picture a little bit, Rhys. What are your thoughts going on, out east?
Is Arizona pulling what the Tigers did last year, where they sold off at the deadline and they somehow got better? That's a question that we all need to be asking ourselves. Because I think it's more honestly the Mets' inability to win games. Right? How do you win games in baseball? There's two ways you can win. You can either score. You have to score more runs, and you have to let your opponent not score as many runs as you. And the Mets are failing at both of those aspects of the game. Jonah Tong has looked up and down. The entire rotation has looked up and down since on a day where Nolan McLean isn't starting, like you mentioned. The bullpen has been very not good. They've kind of, it happens, right? Small sample size with relievers. But I'm really hoping that the Arizona can kind of come back in. I think it's fun when these teams technically sell off at the deadline, get a little bit better for the future. Although the Arizona really prioritized close to the majors, AAA caliber players. So maybe there was a good move on their part. So I'm really excited to see how this National League wild card goes. And honestly, anytime the Mets start to fall back to being the LOL Mets, it's fun. It's fun for anybody who's not a Mets fan.
Yeah, I mean, the odds aren't in favor of the Diamondbacks, or to bring up some other teams in the mix. I mean, the Reds and the Giants are technically still alive, but we would have to see one of those three teams probably run the table, and the Mets would have to play sub 500 baseball down the stretch. But I just want to highlight the Mets are 78 and 74 this year. I don't know if everyone fully understands how big this slide has been, Rhys. This is a team that was projected to win at least 90 games. I know that their Vegas win total was like 92.5 this year, so they've already hit the under there. What went wrong with this Mets team in the last month or so? We were sitting pretty earlier in the season.
I think honestly, the starting pitching, just not having enough of it, enough quality. I mean, they've had to pull every lever that they could. We didn't think that Brandon Sproat was going to get called up at all this season, and he's been probably what their second or third best starter the past couple of weeks. Like he's been really, really fun. Like okay, we're coming from where he was earlier on in the season. That's kind of a small miracle. So we're talking about a team that's the rotation has taken a step back, and the bullpen. Like they made a lot of adjustments. Right, Ryan Helsley's been pretty bad, been tipping pitches. You have everything going wrong for them, except Juan Soto. Juan Soto's been awesome. He might have a 40-40 season just out of nowhere. Who would have guessed that would have happened?
And we look at this bullpen, who we were so high on at the trade deadline with Diaz, Rogers, Helsley, even guys like Gregory Soto and Brooks Raley in there, and all of them have been, quite frankly, bad the last month. I mean, Ryan Helsley has been negated to a middle relief role. He's not even in leverage anymore. Tyler Rogers, who was once maybe the best reliever in baseball earlier in this year, has really fallen back down to earth. So I guess this is a test in how important the bullpen is in baseball, and the lack of starting pitching. I mean, who's your number one pitcher in a playoff series on this team, Rhys? Is it McLean? Like what? Clay Holmes and David Peterson are hanging around, but we got three really young guys in this rotation right now.
Oh, that playoff rotation is going to be. I mean, McLean's written in pen with Sharpie written over it. Like he has to be the game one starter, right? And in their wild card round, who do you start game two is going to be the most fascinating question. I think that this is a team that can kind of employ a like Tigers did last year, pitching chaos, and that might be what they have to do. I do not think you can reliably have Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat go out there and face a lineup twice. Like they need to be once through the order. Maybe they should have traded for a starter pitcher. Who would have thunk? But yeah, Clay Holmes. I mean, honestly, the fact that he's held up this entire season is kind of a small miracle. Going from being a reliever to a starter, he's made every start. Maybe Kodai Senga comes back and shows off some stuff. He's been good in AAA, which you would kind of expect. So this rotation is going to be one of the more fascinating things that goes on. I think you have to have McLean start, and honestly, McLean might one of the more interesting subplots of this entire season towards the end is they might need McLean to start the final game to get into the postseason, and I believe I've mapped it out. And if he does start that game, he graduates prospect status, so that he is no longer eligible for a PPI pick, which ultimately isn't going to matter because I think the Mets are going to have a lot of options to get that. I mean, we're looking at one of the best farm systems all the major league with a lot of close to the majors talent. I mean, Tong might be in the conversation, but yeah, I just think that it's going to be one of the more fascinating things, how they manage even just to get to the postseason, because they're on like all hands on deck at this point.
Carson Benz, Rookie of the Year. You never know, man. I think we probably see a combination of Holmes, McLean, and Senga. I wouldn't be surprised if they push Senga to maybe that must-win Game 3 role. And then Jonah Tong, maybe if they advance in the playoffs in like a 3-inning starter role, kind of like your Tigers did with some elongated kind of relief type guys. I could definitely see that happening. If Brandon Sproat's pitching in the playoffs, I would be quite frankly surprised, but I mean, I think that's enough Mets talk for today.
He's probably the guy they have. He's probably the guy they have if a game gets out of hand. He probably comes in and is like, "You just need to wear this."
He needs to throw 7 innings in a 10-0 deficit kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Brett Honeywell for the Dodgers a couple of years ago did that, and I remember Freddie Freeman gave a nice speech to him about like, hey, we needed you to save the bullpen, and you went out there and just kept throwing. And that's an underrated part of playoff baseball. Some guy just has to eat the innings at this point, and it's kind of like F their arm, you know? All right, moving right along. Our Fangraphs World Series win projections. All right, I think this is super interesting looking at it because they have a couple teams that are just heads and tails ahead of everyone else. And I want to talk about the top 3 teams as far as World Series win percentage goes. And that would be the Dodgers at 13.5%, the Mariners at 12.8%, and then the Phillies at 11.8%. Is that a realistic top 3 for teams that could win the World Series, Rhys? And we do have the Blue Jays hanging around at 11.1%.
I honestly think that you have to trade the Mariners for the Blue Jays. With what the Blue Jays are doing, George Springer's renaissance. He has had a 215 WRC plus since the All-Star break. It's him and Nick Kurtz. Last I checked, they're the 2 best hitters in baseball since the All-Star break. And they've got fantastic pitching coming up. We saw Trey Savage come up. I think the Blue Jays are kind of the class of the American League at this point. But I don't disagree with the National League. We're talking about the Phillies, who have been, kind of just. I feel like with all the stuff that's going on with the Mets, the Phillies excellence has kind of been understated. And yeah, like the Dodgers are the Dodgers, man. You can't really, they will be a fascinating thing to see because their bullpen has not been very good the past couple of weeks.
So we're looking in the NL at the Dodgers and the Phillies. Do you think the Brewers belong in that same tier of maybe there's three favorites to make the World Series rather than two? Or do the Brewers kind of begin that second tier of teams like, the Mets, the Padres, and the Cubs?
I think the Brewers are definitely in there because they have the ability to mix and match pitching and, force platoons and change platoons and blow up entire game plans pretty quickly in a postseason game if they really want to. And they've shown this is an organization that's done that in the past. They actually had, what was it, Wade Miley years ago start one inning when the Dodgers were heavily platooning, and then basically they took out all the left-handed hitters and had to put up the right-handed lineup in for the rest of the game. So this is a team that is geared for that sort of stuff. They play an aggressive style of baseball. They take the extra base, and they don't get caught. It seems like they're always getting quote lucky, but I think they just have a better game plan than everybody else. Like last postseason, we were talking about the Dodgers saying they had a better game plan and they knew that the Yankees were fundamentally weak. The Brewers can take advantage of any fundamental weakness on a defense or a pitching staff. So I think they're right there in there. They don't have the star power that everybody else, the other two teams have, the Phillies and the Dodgers, but they're just as good, if not better, and deeper 1 through 26, 27, 28. I forget how deep the postseason rosters are.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like the bullpen despite it being a little bit banged up right now. Like Trevor McGill coming back is huge. But once you get kind of into the depths of their bullpen, you're like, do they have the star power to compete with even a team like the Padres? Which is why I would almost lean towards favoring the Padres over the Brewers. And my argument would be that Padres bullpen is absolutely ridiculous, Rhys. I mean, have we seen what they've been doing lately? I mean, ever since the trade to the trade at the trade deadline, the Padres have been absolutely lights out. Do you think the bullpen matters that much in postseason baseball to where I should be this high on the Padres?
I think the bullpen matters more in postseason baseball than I don't think there's any way that we can properly account for how nasty this bullpen's going to be. I mean, yeah, they've got 5 guys that are legitimate nightmare fuel, and then they can kind of, if you get lucky and get a good 4 innings from Nick Pivetta, Michael King, Dylan Cease, Randy Vasquez, Yu Darvish could turn back the clock and look like prime Yu Darvish, because Yu Darvish is very susceptible to having a fantastic game because he's one of the more interesting pitchers we've ever seen. So this bullpen is going to keep the arms fresh. You're going to be able to mix and match the bullpen in any sort of way that you want. I mean, they have great right-handed relievers, right? And Suarez, Miller, Jeremiah Estrada. And then, oh yeah, by the way, they have one of the best left-handed relievers in baseball in Adrian Morejon. So we're talking about a bullpen that can mix and match with the best of them.
It's like, what happens if you see Jeremiah Estrada in the 4th inning and he goes 2 innings out of the pen for the Padres? I mean, that's like a realistic possibility. And when I look at the Padres also, their starting pitching has been a discussion all year long, but I'm starting to like where it's standing at this point. I mean, Michael King, Dylan Cease, Nick Pivetta in a playoff series. And if you want to kick one of them to the bullpen for Yu Darvish, I can understand that because of Yu Darvish's, playoff track record. But I mean, Michael King being back gives them their game 1 starter that they've been kind of lacking for the last couple months, with injuries and whatnot. And I mean, I definitely pick them over a team like the Cubs or the Mets. But the Brewers versus Padres is an interesting thought for me on who that 3rd favorite in the NL is.
And I like the way that the Padres have built out their bench. Elias Diaz is a perfectly fine backup catcher. Jose Iglesias can play a few different positions. He's no longer the international pop star that he once was. Will Wagner is someone that I've always liked more than most. The guy just gets on base, right? He can just be a left-handed on-base guy. Bryce Johnson's not bad either. So they have a lot of ways in which they can kind of keep and the lineup's fantastic. Tatis, Arias, Machado, Merrill, Laureano has been probably the best hitter picked up at the deadline. Gavin Sheets, Ryan O'Hearn. This is a deep lineup. I don't like that Jake Cronenworth has to play shortstop right now, but you can figure that out. If you hit enough, right, doesn't really matter. And Freddie Fermin has also been one of the more underrated because he's just a perfectly steady starting catcher, right? He should be a backup, but he's a starter for this team that doesn't need a great offensive catcher.
He commands the pitching staff well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think looking at that 4.6% win World Series percentage, I think it's just a little low for the Padres. And I wanted to give them a shout there. Let's move over to the AL now, where the Mariners are favored, which is something that honestly shocks me as a Mariners fan. And then we see a team like the Blue Jays at 11.1%, the Yankees at 10.8%, your Detroit Tigers at 7.9%, followed by the Red Sox and Astros at just about 4%. Rhys, am I crazy for thinking the Tigers should be the favorite still in the AL?
I think the Blue Jays should be the favorite. I don't know if I'm just trying to like have like some sort of like hope or whatever. I do
Yeah,
not understand how the Tigers can be below the Yankees.
I don't get
The
it.
the Tigers have the best pitcher on the face of the planet. They have the bullpen's been Kyle Finnegan's been one of the better pickups and all. I keep saying that one of the better pickups, but he's actually been really good and it costs him nothing. The lineup goes through hot stretches and they've got options to play around with. And AJ Hinch is maybe one of the three best managers in baseball. He is perfectly adept for pitching chaos and platoon chaos, right? He is ready. This is kind of his like dream, right? To have mix and match all over. He likes to play chess while other managers like the Mets manager plays not even checkers. We're talking about shoots and ladders with him. So yeah, man, I think the Tigers should be the second favorite in the American League behind the Blue Jays.
And I feel like we almost are forgetting about what the Tigers did last year in the playoffs. Like, they do have that playoff winning experience on a team that maybe shouldn't have that experience, kind of looking at the young faces who've been in Detroit for most of their careers so far. But I kind of look at the Tigers as almost the Brewers in a similar light. If the Brewers were in the AL, I'd kind of feel similarly about them. Like, this might be the best team. I'm just not 100% sure if I can get fully behind a favorite in the AL right now. I
Yeah.
think it's a tier system. I think the Mariners, Tigers, and Blue Jays are in tier 1, and then I think the Yankees start tier 2. I'm sorry, especially with how we've seen playoff Aaron Judge perform throughout his career. I'm not confident in their pitching staff. I'm absolutely not confident in their bullpen. They
Their
don't have a
defense is
true guy to go
atrocious.
to. Right? Anthony Volpe can't hit a baseball. Like, why are we propping up the Yankees so much? Can you make the counter argument for the Yankees and why they should be maybe at a 10.8 World Series win percentage?
Aaron Judge can go crazy. Giancarlo Stanton is one of the more prolific postseason hitters we've seen in a while. That's kind of it, really. Do you really trust Max Fried in a postseason game? Like Carlos Rodon either pitches. He is the duality of pitchers, right? He has blowups or he has really good starts. So maybe you get lucky with that. The bullpen kind of worries me a little bit. It's not, and they're such a fundamentally poor team. Jazz Chisholm. He got bailed out. He got really lucky recently. He tried to make one of those highlight reel plays at second base, and he got lucky that the runner was slow. I don't know if you saw the highlight. Jazz Chisholm is one of the more fundamentally flawed players in baseball.
Yeah.
He's an electric talent, but like the fundamentals aren't there for him. That's fine. But yeah, I don't know how you can put the Yankees in the top tier of contenders. I really don't.
I have a hard time picking them with their starting pitching. I mean, it starts and ends at Max Fried, in my opinion. I'm sorry, you can't convince me that Carlos Rodon
Or Cam
is
Schlittler.
yeah, and that's who's probably going to start Game 3 of the playoffs, unless you prefer Will Warren, which I can't imagine people do. But I mean, these teams that are starting rookies in the playoffs, if it isn't like Jacob Mizorowski or Nolan McLean, I'm not sure if I'm moved by rookies starting in the postseason.
No.
All right. Well, are there any matchups that you really want to see in the playoffs? Just kind of looking at this right away, like the Red Sox Yankees matchup, does something like that intrigue you? Are there any teams that you think match up really, really well against each other?
I want to see the San Diego Padres, Chicago Cubs. That's who they would line up with, right? Essentially, we're just going to assume all things considered, Padres are clinched, right? I think the Padres are the better team. So I don't know who would be the betting favorite in that sort of situation, but I think the Padres are going to steamroll this Chicago Cubs team.
I think the Padres match up great against the Cubs, and I think that they will definitely play each other. Like, the way it's lining up, it almost seems like pretty certain at this point that they're going to play each other unless something crazy happens. And I do think the Padres would have to be favored in that matchup. I mean, who do the Cubs have pitching at this point? Like, Cade Horton is had a good season. Are we really sure that he's going to be able to win a playoff game against
I
someone like Dylan Cease? Like, that's who he would match up against.
Yeah, I'm looking at their rotation, right? Shota, like that would kind of have to be, I don't even know. Like maybe Matthew Boyd's the game one starter. This is not a team. that's shown a willingness to get super creative with pitch deployments either. I would have loved to have seen them like call up Jackson Wiggins and maybe just see if that's the lever, the upside sort of gamble. Maybe you ride in on the fact that teams haven't had a chance to see him, kind of just ride that wave. But no, it's a very weird rotation. The offense has goes through like pretty extended. It's a good lineup when everybody's healthy, but no Kyle Tucker really makes this lineup look a lot worse. So it's a team that I really want to see the Padres. The Padres are going to be like my favorite team to watch this entire postseason. I love the jerseys. I love how hyped the fan base is. I think anybody the Padres watch, the Padres match up weirdly with everybody really well because that bullpen is just nightmare fuel.
That is the missing, like, that is the matchup predictor in my eyes, is like, who has the better bullpen? I want to favor that team. And if you have Mason Miller in your bullpen, I want you.
As the second best reliever in the bullpen. That's nuts.
I want the team with Mason Miller in the playoffs, so you can bookmark that now. All righty, Rhys, we're going to wrap up MLB and head over to MILB. Minor League Baseball is wrapping up right about now. AAA is still going on. AA has just concluded as of a day or two ago. And I just want your thoughts on minor league baseball as a whole this year. Are there any interesting storylines you've been following? Is there anything kind of at the top of your mind as far as, this minor league season goes?
I think that we're talking about what was a very down year for talent. I don't think outside of like the top guys, I just think the middle and then the back end of like a top 100 is kind of like, pick your guys right at that certain point. And I think that is kind of emblematic of some of the, teams are being more aggressive. Like we used to see college guys, they used to take them about a full, they had their little sample right after the draft and then they had a full year in the minor leagues. And then like halfway through the next season, basically like 2 years after being drafted, they were like being in conversation unless you're like a top 5 guy. Now guys are just flying through the minor leagues left, right, and center, like Jack Kaggs, Nick Kurtz, more. I'm gonna butcher a bunch of them, but yeah, the guys are flying through the minor leagues. That makes the minor leagues down because there's not. Like Christian Moore normally would have started at high A and then worked his way to double A, and then maybe he saw a taste of triple A this year. But nope, he's in the major leagues, and I think he like had a home run pretty recently. So ultimately, that sort of losing those college hitters and college pitchers now too, it kind of hurts the overall quality of the minor leagues. So like this top 100 that we're going to be doing this offseason, it's going to be a very fascinating one. I think we're gonna have all of our guys submit a list, and they're all going to be wildly different, like 45 to 100. So it's going to be a fun list. I'm very excited about list season. It was a down year in the minor league, so I don't think there was anything super crazy outside of Jesus Mate making it to double A. Kevin McGonigal looks like one of the best hitters like we've seen in the minor leagues. I'm very interested to see where us and other publications go with the McGonigal, Griffin, Mate sort of trio, because it seems like they've separated themselves from the rest of the crop.
Couldn't agree more, man. I think the story of the minor leagues this year is it's been some down talent in the lower minors because we see these guys getting pushed to AAA essentially, or double A essentially as soon as possible, especially for these pitchers. They're heading to double A as fast as possible. They're spending some time in double A, making a pit stop in triple A, and then they're going to the big leagues. I mean, that's the Jonah Tong, Trey Savage mold, right? Trey Savage pitched at every single level of the minor leagues this year. I don't know if you saw that graphic. There's only something like 10 players have ever done before, made their MLB debut in the same season that they played single A, high A, double A, and triple A. And if that isn't, proof of this kind of new minor league thought process for these MLB orgs, I don't know what is. Cole Emerson got the promotion to AAA recently. He's kind of the last big prospect promotion of the season just because the Rainiers are continuing to play and they clinched the playoffs recently. Are you a fan of teams? Cole Emerson only spent a handful of weeks in AA this season. Are you a fan of them kind of pushing him up so he gets more reps, or is that something you're kind of against?
I'm always pro more reps, especially for hitters. I don't think there's such thing as too many at bats, right? And like he's going to go up against guys who are bouncing between, being quad A players who are going to be embarking on the international part of their career. So it gives you a chance to see what it looks like against more MLB ready stuff, even if it's just a small sample size. And ultimately it's just for a postseason run. He'll probably hit like 5th or 6th in the lineup. So, but he'll still get some leverage at bats and maybe he hits a couple of home runs. I think some of the more stats based people will be excited because you actually get some StatCast data on him. So it's good. It's always good to get a little bit more clarity on a guy, and AAA is the best place to get clarity on whether this guy's going to be major league ready or not. Not that I think if the Rainiers make a big postseason run, it's going to be 12 games of at bats, so it's nothing you can really draw that big of a sample of, but it's still better than nothing, right? I think it's better than taking a break, and then I don't remember if he's scheduled. We're going to be doing an Arizona Fall League preview, so I'm going to be doing a lot more research into it. I don't think he's slated to go to the Arizona Fall League.
No, I do not believe he is. I'm interested to see if this boosts his stock at all when the public is once again exposed to some of these exit velocity numbers, and then especially the 90th percentile EV for Colt Emerson has always been something that's been very, very
Very good.
impressive. Despite how much he hits the ball on the ground, it's like, oh wow, this guy really hits based on size and position. You don't think, kind of a lean lefty shortstop is going to be popping the kind of numbers that he does. So I do wonder if we see him join kind of this echelon of guys like maybe like a JJ Weatherholt this offseason in top 100 lists. Like I could very easily see Colt Emerson getting pushed as high as like number 5 in top 100 prospect rankings. And while I don't necessarily know if that's the correct move with a guy like him who still needs some seasoning in the minor leagues, whereas JJ Weatherholt's more ready-made, I do think we might see a trend where he gets pushed up a little bit because of these numbers becoming public. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that was something I've been thinking about.
I think all and no shots at anybody who does that sort of work. I think it's fantastic. You're going to see as shout out to Prospect Savant. They actually are one of the few places that do a lift air pull percentage. Colt Emerson's not going to rank very highly on that yet, but he might next year. Because I think he's going to start putting it together. I've seen him a bunch. I've seen him in person last year when he was in Single A, and we're talking about a guy who, once he does make that launch angle tweak a little bit, however he gets there, right? There's a million ways to skin a cat, they say. He's going to start popping up. Honestly, him and Weatherholt's going to be a very fascinating offseason discussion. And Weatherholt's been ready for the major leagues for like 6 weeks now, but it's the Cardinals, and they don't promote guys quickly, so.
I mean, we had JJ Weatherholt at number 4 in our top 100 and Colt Emerson at number 11. I think it's fair to say that everyone in between them is kind of up in the air this offseason. While you mentioned the top 3 is pretty solidified, I mean, Weatherholt versus Emerson is a real conversation that we will be having this offseason. We're going to have to reference some of these AAA numbers between the two. So I do think things are going to start getting interesting for Colt Emerson pretty quickly. He is batting 9th for Tacoma, which I do love that they're putting him in the 9 hole. I think that just shows that, hey, they want to go win this AAA banner, man. And I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that. And he hit a home run in his debut. So you never know. I want to talk a little bit about the lower minor league MVPs, which is something that's come out. AA has not yet come out. It should be coming out any day now. Our single A MVPs for each league are Caleb Bonnemer, Eduardo Quintero, and Alfredo Duno, Rhys. It's kind of interesting because these are all guys kind of in the middle of those top 100 lists right now. Are there any one of those guys that you want to talk about specifically? I know you're a big Quintero guy, but I don't know if any of them get you excited.
Honestly, outside of Caleb Bonnemer, who's like perfectly fine, he's in the 100 conversation for sure.
Yeah.
He's been really, really good for quite a while. A little understated. I think he's a little passive at the plate, which ultimately hurts everything. But Eduardo Quintero, man, we're talking about guys who might be top 10 prospects. I think Eduardo Quintero is. I think I put him at like 11th in when me, you, Matt put together our top 100. I was very high on him. I think he's the best Dodgers prospect. Potential 5-tool guy. Alfredo Duno might also be a top 10 prospect. The more I look at it, like it, just pull up his Fangraphs page whenever. So you get, like, whoever's listening to this, whoever gets bored, he hits every sort of benchmark. He hits for power. He has a good approach. He does get a little swing happy a little bit, but he's still an absolute animal defensively. Freak show tools. So yeah, I love these guys. Eduardo Quintero won an MVP only playing in like 81 games of the season. And he was so good. 306, 426, 533 to 14 home runs and 35 stolen bases. That's a really good full season line. And he did that in 81 games.
I'm almost surprised looking at Alfredo Duno's page, and I know he's been doing incredible this year, but why didn't he get a cup of coffee in high A at this point? This guy spent all year in single A after playing in single A a little bit last year. He was clearly ready for the promotion, but I guess you get awards like MVP when you do stick around the whole year. Alfredo Duno, slightly passive at the plate this year, slightly more than last year, but he is walking quite a bit and not striking out a whole lot. Not a whole lot of whiff in the Duno profile. And we do have the makings of a good defensive catcher in Alfredo Duno. And a catcher who can hit for power is like, we're seeing what Cal Raleigh's doing in the MLB. Like, good defensive catchers who hit for power, it doesn't really matter how much average you hit for at this point, Rhys. Like, does average even matter for a catcher anymore in your eyes, or are you just looking at the power and the fielding metrics?
I kind of want a guy who can go out there and like maybe catch every day, and have, withstand that workload, has a good glove, And if he hits 20 home runs, I'm like doing backflips. Like the power, I want a power over hit guy. Unless you're Caden Bodine, which I love Caden Bodine. Because although he's going to start hitting for more power, I think people who think that he's going to hit 8 home runs in a season, need to catch up to what he's been doing. They're not familiar with his game. So yeah, Duno might be a top 10 prospect, honestly. Like I think I'm going to have to like fight myself because I hate being quote the high guy, but like I want to be the high guy on a catcher who can catch and has maybe 30 home run power, especially in Great American Small Park, as Matt Thompson calls it.
We need to watch some more Duno tape this offseason and really figure out how high we can be on this guy because I'm starting to be right there with you, my friend. Let's move on to the high A MVPs, and things get kind of interesting in the high A. Isaac Pacheco, not the football player, Lazaro Montes, and Esmeralyn Valdez, Rhys, are your 3 high A MVPs. 2 names in here that do not find themselves in a top 100 or maybe even a top 200 list. Do you want to start off with Isaac Pacheco? And is this an actual prospect, Rhys?
I think he has an actual prospect. It is his 3rd time, 3rd time's the charm in high A. But no, it's a corner profile. Is for power, no speed, little defensive value, probably a first base prospect at the end of the day. But, I'm glad to see that he's putting it together because he was someone that they're very high on. The draft from the 2nd round in the 2021 draft, gave him good money. And he's not like at 22 years old, he is age-ish appropriate for the level. So I think that I think he's probably like a 40 because I don't rank corner profiles as high as other people. I will always bump them down a little bit, especially because like if he doesn't hit in double A, then like what are we doing? So I'm going to hedge my bet since he's like a 40. So he's a prospect, but he's probably like a top 400 prospect.
Is he a poor man's Lazaro Montes looking at this profile right now?
Oh, Lazaro Montes plays place in the outfield. Should he play in the outfield? Different question entirely. But yeah, he's kind of similar profile. A little less power. Doesn't have like one of the craziest arms you'll ever see.
Do you want to keep going on this Lazaro Montes train? This is a guy who once again, despite all of the contact concerns, has just put up gaudy power numbers for another year, Rhys. And when is it going to stop? I mean, he keeps climbing the ladder. And I mean, you and me both predicted that he would really struggle in double A. And he maybe didn't struggle as much as we thought he would. Where are we at on Lazaro Montes right now, the high A MVP?
He is your 3 true outcomes king. The man loves to walk. He loves to hit home runs, and he does love to strike out a little bit. He's probably a DH going forward. I don't know if you've seen him more recently than I have. I remember I saw him in 2024, and I was like, this man wants to show off the arm, and he does not care what happens. I mean, I would too if I had a probably 70 grade arm attached to it, but it plays more like a 45 because he just doesn't hit the cutoff man ever. Shout out to him, but yeah, it's. The comp I've been working with is like Franmil Reyes. So for a couple of years, these sort of profiles do work. But when he starts to slow down and becomes an even worse defender, he basically loses any defensive value, and then he has to go be a DH. And is the contact enough to be a DH? Like that's the one thing I wonder because we don't worry about the power. It might be 70 game power, 80 raw. But the contact makes the power play down ever so slightly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely a DH from what I've seen in person. I mean, the guy's an absolute cannon, but the jumps and routes are as bad as maybe I've ever seen. There's been a lot of videos circulating online this year about him just kind of going back and forth in the outfield with for balls that are over his head. So, yeah, you can't safely put him in the outfield. It's just the same as you can't safely put Michael Arroyo at second base right now if you're the Mariners. But moving along to Esmeralyn Valdez, Rhys, this is a corner outfield guy who was on. Is it safe to say not very many radars heading into this season? This is a guy who, I put at the back end of my personal top 200 list, but he hit 20 home runs in high A this year before getting, 215 plate appearances in double A. So this isn't a guy who played a whole lot in high A this season, but 20 home runs in 72 games with a 300 average. It was very impressive. Where are you at on Esmeralyn Valdez right now?
I mean, in 2024, he hit 22 home runs. So like the power is not that far out of the range. We're talking about big power guys. The Pirates are really cornering the market on like first base type who hit for big power. It's him, Florentino, who's a first baseman. He's not a center fielder, and I'm tired of arguing with people on that. But no, I'm just joking. But he plays center field, so that means he has to. So Valdez, you like him more than I do. I don't like first base prospects all that much. Even if he does play corner outfielder, I think that's where he probably profiles best. We're talking about elite power, maybe touch less than Montez. No, I don't think there's very many prospects in the minor leagues who have the sort of power that Montez does.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about just Montez lights in high A this season, but it's cool to give a guy like Esmeralda Valdez that kind of shout, because who would have predicted a high MVP for the guy that Fangraphs had unranked in the Pittsburgh Farm heading into this year. Alrighty, Rhys. Do we want to move on to some college baseball now? I think that's everything I had for the minor leagues.
Yeah, I'm going to swap. I'm going to take on the hosting role here for a second. Nate, I want you to break down the top 10 in the recently released Prospects Live College Top 50. What are some early trends that you're noticing, and what are we seeing emerge in this college class?
Yeah, I mean, people just need to get prepared for a really fun draft class. I mean, we're heading back to 2023 with this one, and we have college bats finally. The thing that we lacked so much last year, having to talk about guys like Ivar Arquette and as the best college bat of last season, Ike Irish was floating up there. This year, we do not have that problem. We have a wealth of college players, especially the college shortstop market is back on the table, and it all starts with Rock Chalowski. Right, this is by far the 1-1, and there aren't any doubts at this point. The hashtag rock bottom is completely real, because I don't see a world where Rock Chalowski doesn't go 1-1 next year unless something catastrophic happens this year. He is that far ahead of everybody else as just the most well-rounded player in this draft who has high-end talent. I mean, it's 60s basically across the board for his scouting profile. And then at 2, we have Drew Burris, who is just who's a freshman phenom from a couple years ago at Georgia Tech. Took a slight step back in his sophomore year, but I mean, the hitting profile is absolutely consistent. He can play enough outfield to still be valuable out there. We're starting to talk about some guys who just have incredibly high floors, and we wanted to bump those guys up because they do still have enough ceiling, a guy like Drew Burris does. Chris Akopian, who we might talk about a little bit more later, might be the best pure hitter in this whole draft. I mean, this is a guy that we are higher on than any other publication, having him ranked at number 3. Just transferred to Texas A&M from Maryland. AJ Gracia at Virginia is another transfer following his Duke head coach over there. Cameron Flukie, our first pitcher, at number 5. I saw Cameron Flukie as a guy who separated himself from other pitchers in a group of 4 pitchers that we have in this class. Cameron Flukie is a slight a toenail ahead of these other guys, putting him at 5 with our next pitcher at number 8. Flukie is a guy who projects to throw like 99, 100 miles per hour as an MLB starter with one of the best curveballs you're going to see. It's legitimately probably a 70 grade curveball. It's a top 5 pitch in this class altogether, with the fastball maybe being a top 10 pitch in this whole class. And then he also mixes in a fun gyro slider. He's the definition of platoon neutral, and he has the frame to add more, and he's already throwing 95, 96 consistently. Cameron Flukie at Coastal Carolina is my guy in this class. I'm booking that right now. Rounding out the top 10, Derek Curiel out of LSU, Justin LeBron out of Alabama. Do we want to touch on that LeBron point, Rhys? You sent me something interesting earlier.
Yeah, pipeline. And again, no, if we show someone's rankings and talk about them, it's not to make fun of them or anything like that. I never want to be that person. But they rank Justin LeBron as the 2nd best college player in this draft. And I was just curious what Nate thought, because this is around this time is when I start to figure out who are the names. But I have pro side coverage to deal with. So this is Nate's domain.
Justin LeBron, I would say if you are high on Justin LeBron, you have to be very secure in that hit tool, which I am not. I am not fully secure in that hit tool. We had multiple guys on the amateur side this year argue that Justin LeBron was a top 5 prospect. I had him more around the 10 range, so he ended up at 7 for us because we are a democracy of sorts. But here's my thing: is the defense is incredible for Justin LeBron, and the power potential is incredible. If you're going to have Justin LeBron at 2, you have to have a guy like Maddox Maloney right next to him, because the defense is better for Maloney. I think it's pretty clear watching the tape that Maloney is maybe the best defender in this class. He's a future Gold Glove winner at shortstop. And Maloney hit 15 home runs this year, right? That's pretty much on par with Justin LeBron. While the EVs are slightly, maybe a tick below LeBron, the defense is better than LeBron. So if we're going to put a guy like LeBron at 2, you have to have a guy like Maloney at 4 or 5. He has to be right there with him. So I would say that the lovers of LeBron have to feel so secure in that hit tool, which I have not been able to get to yet. I think it's an average hit tool at best right now. But this is a guy who, if he does hit for contact this year, if you hit the contact, in zone contact, the chase rate, the whiff rate, if they all take a step up, this is the number 2 prospect in the class. So I guess if you're projecting forward, it's definitely possible. But as he sits right now, he's not number 2 for me. I think if you check in July, there is a definite chance that LeBron gets up there. But I have a hard time putting an insecure hit tool in my top 5.
I'm never going to bet against someone named LeBron. I feel like people have been doing that for too long. Okay. So after LeBron, you said it's Jackson Flora out of UCSB, Maddox Maloney of Oregon, and Tyler Bell of Kentucky. You asked me in our pre-show rundown to list a guy in here that I think is, quote, someone that I like. And I know it's going to sound stupid that I'm going to say the third-ranked guy should be ranked higher. Now, he shouldn't be ranked first, right? But if anybody is going to enter that Rock Chalowski tier, I think it's Hakopian. I think that everything that I've seen, we're talking about fantastic zone contact rates. We're talking about not a lot of swing and miss, hardly if any. And the power is there. We're talking about a 107 90th exit velocity with a 119 max. And if he stays as shortstop, I mean, that's a 55 prospect, right? Like maybe, so we're talking about a top, just sliding him in the top 100 because, again, I do the pro side coverage and I lead that team. So I always factor it in like that. He has all the makings of like a top 25 prospect the moment that he signs. So I really like him. I watched a bunch of his film. I like the way he plays. Even if he doesn't play shortstop, which I think he can play an average shortstop, which I mean, just being an average shortstop carries so much value. He can go move to third base. And I think that we're talking about maybe a plus defender there with all the offensive attributes as well that you really want from that position. Again, I don't think he's ever no one's going to overtake Rock Chalowski, who according to Tankathon, without the lottery happening, if we just went back to the straight old system, he would have to be looking for apartments in the south side of Chicago. Because I forgot that shout out to the I actually kind of like the new MLB draft rules. Colorado, after being bad for so long, is locked in at the 10th slot. Washington at 11, the Angels at 12. I wonder what college pitcher the Angels are going to draft too early. But yeah, Hakopian's my guy. I really like the profile. I think he's a little bit better than Burris. I think that I kind of like the profile and everything that comes to it more than I like Burris. It's like, but again, we're flipping a coin. It's not really, and we're so far away from this draft happening. We're 10 months away, so anything can happen.
Yeah, the Angels will be taking Liam Peterson at 12. I just want to put that into the ether right now. We're going to have to clip this and come back to it in 10 months. The Drew Burris versus Chris Hakopian conversation was very tough for us. We had Hakopian at 2 for quite a while. We even flirted with, I'm not going to say it was ever a super serious conversation, but his Chris Hakopian at a 60 made a little bit of sense until I kind of dove into the defensive tape. He's a third baseman long term is my biggest concern. I would be surprised if he stuck at shortstop throughout his big league career at least. He might play there in the minor leagues, but by the time he's a major leaguer, we're talking about a third baseman. It's a 50 at third base, which is still valuable, and everything else is so good, but the defensive value between a third baseman and a center fielder in Drew Burris is where I struggled with putting Hakopian above Burris. That was our rationale, but those two flip-flopped constantly, and I would not be surprised if Hakopian overtakes Burris once the college season starts, because Hakopian is going to have a huge year playing in the SEC. I mean, going to A&M, I really like A&M this year, Rhys. I know A&M's kind of easy to hate on, but I really like them this year, man. They have some really fun players, got some great transfers, and according to us, got the best transfer of them all in Chris Hakopian.
Okay, so just really quickly here. So obviously Rock, we kind of view him as 1-1, right? Like he's in a tier on his own. Is Burris and Hakopian in their own tier, and then it's another tier after that? I want to give this sort of for the listeners at home or viewers at home, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe while you're at it. So I just wanted to kind of know where the tier breaks happen as of Thursday, September 18th in 2025.
Yeah, so Rock Chalowski is in his own tier. Drew Burris and Chris Hakopian are in their own tier.
Okay.
AJ Gracia, Cameron Flukie, Derek Curiel, and Justin LeBron are in their own tier. And then it goes Flora, Maloney, Bell, Peterson, Gackle, Rhys was what I had in my notes. So we start seeing the tiers obviously expand as we go. Now, there's a lot of kind of like minuscule tiers in this top 10, especially when it comes to like putting a guy like Flukie in his own tier and all the pitchers in the tier below him. It's minuscule, right? We're picking nits at this point.
And to pick some nits, let's talk about the four pitchers really quickly. What separates them? Because obviously you don't think that his ranking is fluky here. I feel like that's going to happen so often. We just got to get out ahead of it and
Yeah.
not do it. I got it out of my system now. But yeah, okay. So you have Fluky, Flora, Peterson, and Gackle.
Yep.
So what separates Fluky from everybody else? And then what kind of you have right now? You have Liam Peterson and Gackle ranked back to back, which I don't. You and I rank very similarly, which
Yeah.
means that's how you
I
view.
don't
They're
know.
back to back right now. You just like Liam Peterson like 1/10 of a percentile more right now.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, when you don't know you rank them back to back, right? I know on Cameron Flukie, which is why I didn't have him back to back with Jackson Flora. Cameron Flukie has a high floor and has projection. He might have the most projection of all of these guys, but he also has one of the highest floors of all of them. It's the combination of floor and ceiling that makes me so comfortable with putting him so highly. And this is a guy who could still rise from 5. And when we get to the overall board, including Prepsters, he might still be in the top 5 because I'm just going to keep liking him the more and more I dig into his stuff. The metrics are ridiculous. Jackson Flora, it's a lot of projection still. He has had the results the same way as a guy like Bremner did at UCSB. How much do we trust those results, Rhys? Those small California school results.
I watched sorry, I didn't watch Jackson Flora. I watched Tyler Bremner play against UC Riverside, and UC Riverside is a school that constantly talks about cutting their baseball program, and you can tell by some of the recruits that they had there. It's a very gritty, grindy team. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, he got Babbitt to death. Like it's and even the facilities are wild. So yeah, shout out to that conference. I'm blanking on it right now. Big West, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the Mountain West. It's Big West.
Flora has one of those fastballs that will probably run up to 100 come pro ball, similar to Fluky. I slightly prefer Fluky's off-speed offerings, especially with the curveball being so good. Flora has like this sweeper slider combination. None of them throw changeups, which is kind of funny to see because you don't need a changeup to dominate mid-major baseball at this point. But Flora has more projection than a guy like Liam Peterson or Gabe Gackle does. Liam Peterson, I have a hard time ranking because he is this big guy. I'm not convinced that the production is fully there right now. And then when I look at a guy like Gabe Gackle, we're talking about a 6-foot tall pitcher who has completely maxed out his velocity. This is a guy that the Angels could also take and pretty much immediately put in the major leagues because he is kind of this finished product. Gabe Gackle might be the best college pitcher. I don't know what the award name for the best pitcher in college baseball is. I probably should.
You probably
Whatever
should.
it is, I would say Gabe Gackle is absolutely the favorite to do it because he has the most present stuff. I mean, it's 4 true pitches. He's had some struggles starting. He's been an absolute dominant relief pitcher in his roles in the bullpen. But I do think that he's the most ready-made product out of all of these guys, but I just don't know how much projection there is, which is why he ends at the bottom of these 4 guys. And then you have to go quite a bit down the list to find another pitcher. I mean, we're talking about 25, and Gabe Gackle ends at 12, and our next pitcher is at 25, and that's Tegan Kuhns. So there is very clearly a top 4 pitchers in this class.
Okay. So one more question on the pitching. Okay, let's compare it to last year's pitching crop, right? Where does let's just say Bremner, Doyle, Arnold, and Anderson did not sign, right? And you're just taking into account pure talent, right? Not taking into account signability. Where would those guys rank among these? Like, is Fluky better than all of those guys? Like, where would you rank them all?
I would put Anderson above Fluky, and then I
Okay.
would probably put Doyle between Fluky and Flora, and Arnold would either be right there alongside Doyle or right underneath Flora, but before Liam Peterson and Gabe Gackle. Tyler Bremner would probably be the last guy in that top tier. He would
Okay.
be at like Bremner would be. I mean, where did we have him last year? He was like 15 or something for us. He was like somewhere
Yeah,
between 12 and 15. I didn't do the rankings last year. He would
I did.
probably be closer to 18 or 20 on this list, if we're being honest. And he
Okay.
did go second overall, but that shouldn't change where we would have him ranked.
Yeah, I agree with you. He was a very common talked about with teams. Obviously, as an underslot guy. Liam Peterson, I just want to ask a question. Okay, is he kind of like? What do you think of the fastball shape? Like, because Brandon Sproat was it seems like all the benchmarks for the next Brandon Sproat, right? Like, probably needs to throw a sinker. What do you think of his fastball shape on Liam Peterson, and then to compare him to a recently promoted major leaguer?
He probably needs 3 fastballs.
Okay.
Is how I see it. This is probably a guy who needs to add. I think sinker's probably the most obvious addition. He's got a good slider, but the 4-seam shape could use some work. Honestly, like the velocity isn't as consistent either as you'd like it to be. I know we kind of talk about him as also one of these ready-made starters. And Jacob Maxwell did write a fantastic report on Liam Peterson that kind of convinced me to not put him at last in this tier over a guy like Gabe Gackle. But the fastball shape does need some work. He's going to be a guy who might end up being a cutter sinker fastball guy in the pros, just take some pressure off of the four seam fastball.
Okay, so he's very Brandon Sproat-esque, to use a comp, because they're both Florida Gators. He's kind of like what of these guys, right? He's the one that like landing spot is going to matter kind of the most. Like if he ends up in an organization like the Angels, is going to be given the best chance to thrive. Like, but if he goes to, let's just pull up Tankathon really quickly.
I mean, Liam Peterson is a two-pitch guy.
Yeah.
Like, he is a two-pitch guy. Like, I'm sorry, that just kind of is what he is. He throws way too many fastballs. He needs to go to a team that can develop more pitches, which is, quite a few teams now can do that. But about half the teams, would be good landing spots, and half the teams wouldn't be.
I'm just curious. He just seems like, of all the guys, like you talked about Fluky being pretty awesome. Like Fluky might be, landing spot proof, right? At a certain point. Flora might also be to a little bit of an extent as well. He's probably the one that's most landing spot like dependent. But that's something we'll talk about when we get to there. I think that's kind of wraps up our college top 50. Sorry, I'm not trying to undersell you there. So the MLB recently came through right before we started recording, and now there's a new scouting rule that's really going to impact some things. I think a little bit less than I think some in the amateur space are talking about. But Nate, do you have that article handy of Jeff Passan, passing bombs like nobody else? So he was the first one to come out with it.
Let me pull it up right now, Rhys. I honestly didn't read it. From what my initial reaction was, it sounds like scouts now have to take a month off from scouting every year. Is that a fair synopsis?
Yeah, because heaven forbid they get good work-life balance. They can't go to games and stuff. They can't find out things on pitchers, which like, how much are you finding out? Pitching changes so quickly. How much are you really finding out in the fall that is really going to change some things, because you have a full season in the spring? It's not like you're going to be able to hide a guy, that well these days.
Yeah, so what I'm reading right here is it is called the Amateur Recovery Period Policy. It covers high school juniors and seniors from October 15th to January 15th and college players from November 15th to January 15th. So the way that I initially read this was they want us to basically stop doing these winter showcases, which would keep like essentially pitchers from throwing year round. Because now, if you look at the amateur baseball scene, right? So your high school season. Let's look at the calendar really fast, Rhys. So the high school season, what for most people is like March to May for a normal high school. I remember talking to Tate and Gray, and he played until like July or whatever. That was weird. Indiana high school baseball. After that, from May to August is your summer circuit, right? That's where you're playing, these big tournaments. You're going down to Georgia or whatnot, playing in PBR. Area codes in August and stuff like Under Armour All-Americans. And then some showcases still continue in the fall, which is part of the problem, is that where are we getting this rest at? And then we have something like Super 60s in the winter. And then where are you taking a break? When are pitchers deloading, right? Because you need to take 3 or 4 weeks off to deload your arm, and then you have to build it back up for 6 weeks. So where's the 2-month period that these pitchers can take off from throwing? There isn't one right now in amateur baseball. So I think that is what they're trying to alleviate right now, which is smart. However, it's naive to think that pitchers are going to put down the ball.
Right. You're punishing the wrong people, and you're making their job a little bit more difficult. I wish that there was more incentive structure, I don't think there's anything wrong with PBR 60, but I think in the time of the year that it happens, I think that that's not the best, because that's, for a lot of those cold weather guys, that's probably their one chance to give a consistent look in front of scouts. Because even in Iowa, shout out to your camera on this one. Your camera's on an adventure today. Pretty early record for us. So
What's going on?
I don't even know. But yeah, man, we're talking about, like this, like PBR Super 60 happens like that doesn't allow like even like pitchers to, we got Big Nate. I'm flustered with what's going on with your camera, but this happens. So yeah, I just think we're incentivizing the wrong thing. Do you think this will change like a PBR Super 60 event? I know it's like the most high profile event, because even Perfect Game takes kind of a little bit of a break for the high school seniors and everything during the winter.
Yeah, sorry, I just am turning off my camera at this point. It's just not working well enough. I wonder how this will affect. I really don't think this rule is going to affect anything because when I look at like my college baseball schedule from November 15th to January 15th, we are doing nothing. There are no fall games. There's nothing going on. So unless a scout like wanted to come to a practice or get some video on a guy swinging at when he's home over Christmas break, this doesn't affect college baseball really at all. It does affect amateur prep baseball because there are showcases between October 15th and January 15th. Like quite frankly, Bushnell, the school I coach at, is having a prospect camp on October 25th. So if for some reason a scout wanted to come, look at guys work out, we are working out guys in late October, but we are not working out pitchers. It's hitter only. So I do think that they had to blanket it by going pitchers and hitters, but it's really just for pitchers.
Yeah. I think that's a really good wrap up for something we only recently found out about 15 or 20 minutes before the record. Honestly, if you didn't check Twitter, I wouldn't have even seen it. So I think we're just going to go into PLive news. I'll take over from here. So basically, we have the Bowman Chrome by Joe Lowry and the card team with the TLDR. Honestly, if you've got I think it was an 146 minutes. I think it's worth the read. I actually recently read it. It was fantastic. Guys like Nate George, Wilfred De La Cruz got a card, and Joe Lowry is one of the most extensive people in the industry. We have the Dynasty Diplomas of Lucas Morel. When the fantasy professor talks about prospects knocking on the MLB doorstep with all the analysis to help you win your fantasy leagues, as some of you guys are still competing right now, while the major league teams are still competing, Lucas talks about Aiden Miller and how his speed and discipline may earn him an MLB role next year, and among many other players. And then the fantasy crew, to continue, did a top 600 update recently, just dropped actually right before we started recording. Greg got his guys all together and they put together their top 600 fantasy prospect rankings. We have you can go on, if you're not a Prospects Live subscriber, you can go on and see the top 30 where Connor Griffin, Kevin McGonigal, and Samuel Basayo is a very interesting number 3 prospect, but he's close to, he's playing in the major league, so you could argue for fantasy purposes, he should be in that point. And then, yeah, Nate, where can they find you on socials?
Yeah, you guys can follow me at Rasmussen Baseball on X. No, I think it's Rasmussen Base on X. I don't even know where you can find me. But yeah, this has been a fun episode. We're super fast paced. We're trying some new things here on deck. So, YouTube comments are always welcome, and I'll fix my camera before next episode. It made it for 50 minutes of this thing.
Yeah, and next episode, I will not be recording in my parents' Lego room, which used to be my childhood bedroom. You can see some Lego sets in the background. You can find me on Twitter at Rhys B. White for as long as I have Twitter, because I constantly wonder if just wandering on into the void and not having social media is better for my own mental health and everything. But without further ado, thank you to everyone. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube that you like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell notification so that you can be notified anytime that we go live, because we are talking about doing a lot of interesting stuff with this on deck as we change and sort of go in a new direction. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.